Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, and apparently our playback, our Wayback Machine is not working. I'm going to have to restart it. But in the meantime, let us go ahead and kick off today's show, the Prophecy Edition, and welcome you in to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we talk about the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. This is a live call-in show, and the phone lines are open. And we take your calls at 850-660-9595. Today is our Prophecy Edition. We'll be talking about various headlines from both the United States and Israel. And I would love to hear your comments about what you perceive is going on prophetically in the world, what your spirit is receiving. As many of you know, I'm not a prophet, but I do study the headlines and provide for you the opportunity to hear and see what it is that I am hearing and seeing. So give me a call and let's talk about what's on your heart, mind, or spirit. It doesn't have to be about prophecy. It can be about a prayer request. It can be about a need that you have, and we would love to hear from you. These 2 hours are just a small part of the 24/7 programming on our station, where you can listen on iHeartRadio, the Igniting Nation app, and at ignitingnation.com on the website through our viewer and through our audio player. These 2 hours are simulcast on all social media, and you can watch and listen. The programs throughout the day are teachings and sermons given over the past 20 years. If you're interested in the full series or a particular teaching, visit the Biblical Truth Library on our website, where you can acquire the entire teaching or a particular teaching. You can acquire it a la carte, and you can use it for your small group. You can use it. We give you full license to use it to teach others, whether or not it's your home or a Bible study at your church. We would not be able to bring you the rebirth of the highly successful TV program Revealing the Truth that ran for over 2,500 episodes if it were not for the generosity of our faithful donors, you, and our sponsors, the Don Burt team at Keller Williams Emerald Coast and Navarre Chiropractic Center. In both cases, I have personal experience, and Don Burt and her team helped me through every aspect of home acquisition imaginable over the past 3 years. Don and her team have been serving the needs of both military and civilian clients for many years and is loved by all. If you're even thinking about relocating to the beautiful Emerald Coast or considering a move of any kind in Northwest Florida, give Dawn and her team a call at 850-684-4284 and check them out online at www.teamburt.com. I'm going to take just a moment and check a setting, if you would not mind, because I want to make sure that the signal is getting out, and that requires me activating a particular application. And the only way I'm going to be able to test it is to see if I can run the show open. And I hope you will bear with me as I do that. Let's see if it'll play. There we go.
Are you frustrated, even angry with the answers you're receiving to your pressing biblical questions? Are you hungry for some straight-talking biblical truth? Welcome into Igniting a Nation's Revealing the Truth with Rabbi Eric Walker. We're not afraid to tackle these issues and find the answers. Call us now at 850-660-9595. Here's your host, Rabbi Eric Walker.
Well, welcome back in. I'm glad to see you, and I hope that you are receiving the full signal and that we've gotten some of the quirks worked out. We integrate 7 different systems with 7 different outlets, and so it's part of the complexity of media, and that is not my expertise. I always depended on Jason Bradley for all of my support, And I hope that you know that he is continuing to be a part of this. He is doing a lot of the editing. He is transcribing from video to audio many of the teaching series that are from years ago that have been extremely popular, some of them with 30 and 50,000 downloads from YouTube. But we want to give you the opportunity, and for those around the globe, to hear those messages and to have access to them. So we are delighted that the system is working. And so our second great sponsor is Navarre Chiropractic Center. This incredible team led by Dr. Laird Lakens, he and the entire team took me from 24 hours a day of debilitating neck pain to a pain-free life. Now, there are chiropractors out there on every corner, and then there's this team focused on a holistic approach that incorporates every technique from classical adjustment to acupuncture, heat therapy, traction, massage, and personal trainers to make sure you'll get the best care possible. This full service practice should be your first stop after a car accident or any injury to your body. No insurance, no worries. They have a plan to accommodate any situation. Give them a call right now at 850-939-3339 and look them up online at NavarreChiropracticCenter.com. As we study prophecy, as we look at the prophetic landscape, as we are analyzing the headlines, we've talked in the past week, past 2 weeks, in regards to not shedding our light onto the scriptural narrative. Now, in order to avoid doing that, we have to take a look at what's out there and search deeply within the scriptures as to, is this a link in the chain which is building towards an ultimate climax? As you read a book, you start out with an introduction, and as you get deeper into the book, you have the what they call denouement, the rising action, and then you have the climax, and you have the ending, hopefully it satisfies you and takes you to a point of closure. Well, the Bible does that for us, but as we were called to be watchmen, as we were called to be the eyes and the ears, as we were called by Jesus himself to look at the signs and learn how to interpret the signs, we need to know about what's going on in the world. And that is the beauty of the internet. Now, most people will tell you, well, the internet's a curse, and it distracts and it separates people, and you find more people sitting at a table, even families of four sitting at a table in a restaurant, and all four of them are engrossed in what's going on their phones, and so they've lost that personal connection. And of course, in any situation, there is the good and there is the bad, and we can decide how we're going to use it. So there's a balance, and God looks for that balance. He talks about balance in Scripture. He says to not use a different set of scales based on who your customer is, that a false balance is an abomination to God. And so as we try to take a balanced view and a balanced look at what's relevant and important in studying prophecy and what's happening today and linking them together, there are from one end of the extreme to the other, from UFOs and outer space encounters to those that believe that there is no such thing as prophecy. All prophecy was fulfilled, and that none of these things are going to happen. However, and I've said this many times before, and I use this in an opening to most of my prophecy classes, that there are approximately 2,500 prophecies in the Bible, of which we can chronicle almost, or even more now, over 2,000 prophecies that have been fulfilled exactly as they were prescribed by God. Now, if we're looking at the odds, and 80% have been fulfilled exactly as God said they would be fulfilled, we have every reasonable expectation that the last remaining 20%, those for now and the ones to come, as we look at the book of Revelation, as to what is to come. And so, as we look at the Ezekiel 38 and 39, as we look at the Psalm 83, as we look at the prophecy of Jeremiah against Elam, which is the western part of Iran, as we look at Jesus' statements, which were prophetic in nature, that there will be wars and rumors of wars, famine and pestilence in diverse places, we're looking at an epicenter of Israel. And although many things going on in America impact, and I believe that America will be one of the 10 kingdoms to come under the control of the Antichrist, we're a key influence on the world. And part of the opening remarks I'm going to give you is my personal perspective on things. I have a deep concern for the course that America is taking. Now, I know that that sounds obvious and that many of you share that very same sentiment, that America is headed in the wrong direction, that our position in the world is headed in the wrong direction, our economy, our defense, our increase in, and we're going to talk about this story about the IRS agents being trained. Why do we need people to come in and examine our finances who are combat ready? Is this another way of building an army? And is this a way to attack our finances? And is this a way to drive us to complete transparency in disclosing everything we're spending our money on? And does this dig so deep into the violation of what the United States Constitution established as our rights? And we were created as a constitutional republic, a democratic republic, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. I have deep concerns about the coming elections. I have deep concerns about the one that everyone wants to be president, but my concern is that because the world is so distracted with the man, that the policies become so intertwined and interlaced with the persona that we have become ineffective. And so all that got accomplished during that 4-year term has pretty much been flipped upside down. And if we have 4 more years of great policies, and because of the persona of the individual, they too get flipped upside down, then we are no better off than we were. And that concerns me. And so I'm not saying that I'm anti this person, I'm pro this person. I'm saying we have to get the right person into the White House that is going to endure 2 full terms, to allow this country to get stabilized, to return to our position of leadership, and to take a stand for the people. This notion of electrical vehicles is so preposterous, but yet it's going to happen. And as it happens, we're going to see battery consumption and battery production and all of these very corrosive materials. Batteries are not filled with environmentally friendly chemicals. They're caustic, they're acid. You take any battery today and it leaks on you, you are going to get a burn. And so I'm not reading a lot about technology for converting water or corn syrup or using things that aren't acidic or caustic. And so, if the big concern is environmental, what is it we're going to do to the environment when we start pouring out these gases from these factories that are handling these caustic materials? And safety is a huge issue. If we can't handle the materials, the raw materials, safely today, imagine what it's going to be like when we are transporting more and more of these caustic materials across nations, across oceans, and from coast to coast across America. And it requires a tremendous amount of infrastructure that everywhere is going to have the ability to recharge your vehicle. Everywhere, your home, your place of business, where you shop, and excuse me. And if the mandate is that all vehicles become electrical, are we working on the infrastructure for doing that? And how much is that going to cost the taxpayer? And who is that going to support? Today, America is not the leading producer of batteries. Now, many companies have announced that they are going to build facilities here, but over what period of time? Excuse me. So I have deep concerns. There are elections today here in Florida for county commissioners and for state representatives, and I will go vote today as I am a registered citizen of the state of Florida, and I will do my civic duty and vote. But I have deep concerns about where the conservative parties, and I say that plural because there's more than one, are headed. And are people willing to accept business people without government experience and bring them into leadership roles to turn this country around as if you were turning a business around? And we are a multi-trillion dollar business. So America plays a part, and we are a key influencer in world affairs. And in that influence, are we peddling influence because it's what the current administration wants, or is it for what is best for America? And I cannot, in good conscience, say that our leadership today is acting in the best interest of this country. Now, we've been given the vote. Is that the only thing we can do? Is vote? Is that the only voice we have in America to influence the direction and the course of this country? And it appears that regardless of how many political action committees and how many organizations and how many groups are out there rallying against the policies of this liberal administration, that even Mitch McConnell was a participant in passing legislation that did not benefit the masses of this country. When I think about the idea of a national college loan forgiveness program, what about those of us that worked our way and paid our way to get a college education? We didn't borrow the money, we didn't take out the loans. So what about us? Our taxpayer dollars are being used to forgive someone's loan who is going to take a position to stand against me. So I'm actually funding through these loan forgiveness programs liberal agendas that these individuals that are getting their loans forgiven, who have gone to Ivy League colleges, who have gone on to take positions in government, I'm funding their campaign to rally against my individual rights, and that concerns me. America has lost its way, and we as believers play a part. Pastors play a part in delivering a message that is going to stir up the congregation to be vocal and not allow our congressmen to represent the special interest in this country. It's true that this country runs on money, but when we have examined during COVID what Big Pharma and their influence over America has been, as we go through this gas crisis and we examine what large petroleum companies' influence has been and still continues to be, it gives me great concern that greed and avarice and the desire for power, and going all the way back to the building of the Tower of Babel, that we are represented by a group of individuals that would build that tower and want to ascend to heaven to be God. And so I'm asking all of you to pray, fervently pray for this country. And it says, the fervent prayer of a righteous person avails much. And I'll challenge you, are you praying for this nation? Because where we stand with Israel, where we stand in the Middle East, where we stand in NATO, and where we stand with Iran, and the new buddy-buddy friendships with the South and Central America regimes to try to have access to their oil, and this open border that has allowed over 2 million people. Now, we're a country of 350 million people. When you add 2 million people, and when you take a look at how many people are on the poverty rolls, and you all of a sudden, we can't support the people that we have that have gone through citizenship through the legal process, yet our borders are overflowing and overrun with people whose heart is not for America. It's for their own gain. It's for the advancement of human trafficking. It's for the advancement of drug smuggling. And I'm not saying that all 2 million are evil actors and that all 2 million are horrendous people. But the cartels are behind this, and this is an organized money-making machine. And it's only to bring in those that are going to be loyal to those that let them in. And since the Democratic Party can't seem to get the vote out, they're now importing voters. This gives me great concern and great pause. So before we get into today's story, several about Israel and Lebanon and what's going on over there, and a couple other stories, we're going to take a short break, and we will be right back.
We'll be right back with more Revealing the Truth with Rabbi Eric Walker right after this commercial break.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s. Why should saving for retirement be any different? I mean, they go back to college, learn new instruments, start skateboarding.
Whoa!
Okay, maybe that one's not for everybody, but saving for retirement is. With aceyourretirement.org, you can get on track with your retirement savings no matter your age. Just have a 3-minute chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach from AARP. You'll get personalized recommendations based on your input that are easy to understand and work with your lifestyle. It's quick, easy, and free. Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back.
Woohoo! Snarly move, Dad.
Thanks, sweetie.
So wherever you are in your retirement savings journey, head to aceyourretirement.org and start chatting with Avo today. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I got to tell you, I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too, but I'm glad we are.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and life experiences come together through conversation, and it feels good.
Wow, your story is so...
Interesting?
Yeah.
When people actually sit down, talk, and listen to one another, they can break down boundaries and connect as human beings. At lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep, you can listen to amazing, life-changing conversations and find simple tools to start a conversation of your own.
I know one thing. This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together by having the courage to start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
In the Garden of Eden, God spoke his first prophecy. Not much has been said or written about the eternal impact of the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. What if every prophecy, and even Jesus' return, was tied to this prophecy and no one ever told you? Now you have a chance to read for yourself Rabbi Eric's latest book, 315, The Genesis of All Prophecy. Featured on Skywatch TV, this book is a must-read. Get your copy at Amazon or from Skywatch TV. And don't forget to order The Codist, Rabbi Eric's prophetic biblical thriller, exposing a diabolical plot to weaponize your DNA. And while you're at it, get his book, The 7 Laws of Abundant Living. Welcome back to Revealing the Truth with Rabbi Eric Walker. Here's your host, Rabbi Eric Walker, ready to take your calls at 850-660-9595.
Shalom and welcome back to the second half hour of Revealing the Truth, where we talk about the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, and we are taking your calls at 850-660-9595. Love to hear your thoughts about the direction of this country prophetically, what the long-term view is, what you see happening, as many of us are looking at the golden years, if you will. There's so many questions looming in front of us as we embrace the future and what that looks like. Certainly none of us knows what's going to happen, or we know what's going to happen. We just don't know when it's going to happen. So we keep a watchful eye. We don't walk in fear, but we walk in faith. And we need to pay attention to what's going on, not just in our local communities. And so every Tuesday is devoted to examining some of the prophetic headlines and stories that are authored by others that I felt that I should share with you. Now, there's no secret that I subscribe to a tremendous amount of newsletters and online reports. Those are available to you as well. And you can read the same stories that I read, or you can tune in here every Tuesday and you can listen to my digest of this, or you can listen to many others' digest on this. But the opinions that I bring you are the opinions of the authors themselves. I bring them to you for information purposes so that you're aware of what's going on. And if you're interested, then you can focus in on that particular area. One of the most critical things going on right now is happening in the Middle East. And Israel and Lebanon are reportedly closing in on a deal to end a long-standing dispute over contested offshore natural gas deposits. And this is a story provided by the Jewish News Service. The IDF is on high alert amid fears that Hezbollah could launch an attack in a bid to derail an emerging maritime border deal between Jerusalem and Beirut that would end a long-standing dispute over contested offshore natural gas deposits, local media reported today. Israel and Lebanon have for more than a year been engaged in intermittent indirect talks mediated by the United States aimed at resolving the issue. According to the reports, the sides are nearing a compromise regarding the Karish field in particular, which Israel considers to be in its exclusive economic zone, but the Lebanese government claims sovereignty over it. Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah has upped his rhetoric ahead of a possible breakthrough in the negotiations, having previously threatened war over the matter. The new equation is Karish, what's beyond Karish, and what's beyond Karish, said Nasrallah in remarks last month made available by the Lebanese Navarre news website. We're following up on all gas fields across Palestine, said Nasrallah. If you don't allow firms to extract gas, we'll flip the table on the entire world. Going to war would be more honorable if the other choice is for the Lebanese to starve. On July the 2nd, Hezbollah sent 3 unmanned aerial vehicles in the direction of the Karish platform, all of which were intercepted by the IDF. U.S. Senior Advisor for Energy Security Amos Hochstein arrived in Israel in early August for an unannounced visit after reportedly presenting a new draft proposal to Lebanese officials during meetings in Beirut. The visit to Jerusalem came just days after Israeli officials suggested that the dispute between the countries was on the verge of a solution. Previous U.S.-mediated talks failed to produce an agreement, especially after Lebanon pushed its claim in the disputed maritime zone from a boundary line known as Line 23 further south to Line 29, adding around 1,400 square kilometers, about 540 square miles, to its claim, including part of Karish. Nasrallah recently told the Hezbollah-affiliated Al Mayadeen TV channel, if the extraction of oil and gas from Karish begins in September, before Lebanon attains its rights, we'll be heading to a problem and will do anything to achieve our objective. Now, this story goes back quite a way. First, we have the Golan Heights, and we have separately the gas reserves off the coast of Haifa. And these two, as I have applied my own light to the interpretation of Ezekiel 38 and 39, that the world would want to plunder Israel because they had so much silver and gold, I kind of fast forward and modernize that to say that Israel has no silver deposits, Israel has no gold deposits, but the silver pipelines of the gas lines, which are made of stainless steel, and the liquid gold found in the reserves underneath the Golan Heights may very well be the example of silver and gold that the world is after. And as we know, wars have been fought over natural resources, over natural gas, over petroleum deposits, and oil fields. And so this makes sense. I'm not saying that it's absolute. I'm not saying it's the correct interpretation. I'm just throwing it out there saying, hey, this is one man's opinion as a way to look at it, because I couldn't reconcile how much silver and gold unless the world poured out these resources. Now, of course, if the Psalm 83 war were to occur prior to the Ezekiel 38-39 conflict, then Israel would have expanded their tent pegs in Lebanon, Syria, most of Iraq, all of Jordan, northern Saudi Arabia, and northern Egypt would be considered sovereign Israel. And within those borders are great deposits of wealth which have been accumulated for centuries for millennia, and they have great deposits of silver and gold in their archives. So you have two different views depending on what unfolds prophetically, but all of it is based on the prophetic unfolding of this Middle East situation. Now, there have been wars with Lebanon, and these wars with Lebanon have been backed by Iran. So Hezbollah is a proxy for Iran. Iran does the funding, and they do it through their oil market. Although they are in many countries, it is illegal to do business and to buy Iranian oil. The United States is in negotiations with Iran to renew discussions in regards to their nuclear capability so that America can buy Iranian oil. Now, for those of us that lived during the Iran-Contra hearings and Iran-Contra crisis and the overthrow of the Shah of Iran and the setup of the new regime, which is a Sharia Muslim regime where the focal point and the power center lies with the Ayatollah, we have deep concerns that America enter into any kind of agreement. Israel has deep concerns about a nuclear Iran. We should all have deep concerns because they have called us the great Satan and Israel the little Satan, and have made it very clear that out of Tehran, out of the leadership, from the Ayatollah to the president, have this message of hate towards the infidels to the West. Now, how do you balance that out with the fact that the population of Iran does not share that view? Once again, we're in a very similar parallel situation to the situation we're facing here in America. The general population of America, as the polls have shown, 65% don't agree with what America is doing. But that doesn't seem to stop the government from proceeding with their agenda. So these problems are not unique to the Middle East. They're not unique to America. They're unique to the human condition. And that is that there is a present darkness. And day by day, it gets darker. And the darkness is advancing. And it's advancing into places that have caused things like the Russian-Ukrainian war. That's modern day. This year began in February and is still going on. And here we are just short of September. This is not good for the world, but yet it goes on. And because of this fear of provoking Russia to deploy their nuclear arsenal, to have Putin still in office, and it's so amazing to me how the media has Putin on death's door, that he is just moments away from either being assassinated or dying of a terminal illness. And he is actually traveling to a conference to be a presenter at a conference. He has maintained his world leadership position and his leadership over Russia. And you and I sit back and say, how can that be? If we had a leader like that, we would certainly find a way to take him out of office. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, we have a leader like that, and we are not able to take him out of office. And he seems to be this puppet whose strings are being pulled by a much stronger confederacy beneath him that are calling the policies of the world, that are taking the positions of the Defense Department and of the Justice Department. And we're seeing things like a raid on the home of a former president. And listen, if you want to see how skewed this is, the focus is so much on attacking and debunking and discrediting Donald Trump that the crimes committed by Hillary Clinton and by Hunter Biden and by Joe Biden are being completely swept under the carpet as the headlines are reading about this attack. And Donald Trump has fired back and filed a Fourth Amendment action against the federal government. So once again, Donald Trump has raised himself to a level of an adversary to the government as someone who is still commanding headlines. And I think that many of us would like to see this situation resolved so that we can go into the election period without having the distractions that we have. And it is a distraction. And the distraction is impacting the polls and impacting the voters. Do I think very highly of Donald Trump? I do. Do I have a great deal of respect for Donald Trump? I do. But do I believe that the circumstances surrounding his presidency and the lies and the attack upon him and his character far outweigh the good that he can do? Should he be a key advisor to whatever administration we put in place? Absolutely. Do we have some great leaders rising up in the Republican Party? I think incredibly highly of Nikki Haley. I think incredibly highly of Ron DeSantis. Mike Pompeo might not be my first choice, but if he were to get the nomination, I would certainly support that. But we're in a very conflicted situation where, because the personal needs of Americans are not being met, we've stopped focusing on the national policies. And so things keep happening daily that are under the radar and out of the focal point of most Americans. A follow-up story to the story of the IDF on alert for Hezbollah provocation, as Israel and Lebanon said nearing maritime deal. Lebanese terror group may attempt to sabotage the negotiations over the disputed offshore gas field, as Lebanon official reportedly says an agreement is very close. So as of yesterday, Israel's security forces are on high alert near the northern border amid fears the Hezbollah terror group may attempt to carry out an attack in order to sabotage talks between Israel and Lebanon on a maritime border dispute, with the sides said to be nearing agreement. Israel and Lebanon have been engaged for over a year in rare U.S. brokered talks aimed at resolving a dispute over rights to offshore fields thought to hold riches of natural gas. Both countries claim some 860 square kilometers, 330 square miles of the Mediterranean Sea. Lebanon also claims the Karish gas fields is in disputed territory under ongoing maritime border negotiations, while Israel says it lies within internationally recognized economic waters. Hezbollah, a Lebanese-based Shiite terror group backed by Iran, has vociferously opposed any concessions in the talks with Israel. Its leader, Hassan Nasrallah, has consistently threatened to target Israeli offshore installations. Now, what would happen if the Iron Dome and the IDF, if one rocket got through and struck one of these offshore gas installations? Would this trigger an all-out war with Lebanon and thus increase the tensions between Israel and the rest of the Middle Eastern countries, as well as Iran? In July, the IDF set it down 3 Hezbollah drones launched at a gas rig in one of the disputed fields. Israeli defense officials fear Nasrallah may be seeking to provoke Israel one more time in hopes of getting credit for an Israeli concession before a deal is signed. Channel 12 reported without citing a source. The report said the two sides are close to signing an agreement. Amos Yadlin, the former head of Israel's intelligence, warned Sunday that Hezbollah was becoming overconfident in its provocations. The terror group was at risk of overplaying its hands and sparking a conflict with Israel, similar to the buildup ahead of the last war between Israel and Hezbollah in 2006, he said. An unnamed Lebanese official was quoted by Russia's Sputnik news outlet on Sunday, saying Beirut was still waiting for Israel's answer to its last proffer, but was optimistic there would be a deal next month. We're very close to reaching an agreement on the demarcation of the maritime border with Israel, the unnamed Lebanese official was quoted by the semi-official Russian outlet as saying. The border demarcation issue will be concluded in September, the source said. So we are just weeks away of seeing the culmination of these talks. U.S. envoy to the deal, Amos Hochstein, said earlier this month that he was optimistic about the deal, and Lebanese foreign minister late last month said he was more bullish than ever about negotiations. The dispute over the maritime border is more than a decade old. In 2012, Lebanon rejected an American proposal to receive 550 square kilometers, 212 square miles, or almost two-thirds of the area, while Israel would have received the remaining third. The disputed area covers the Karish gas field and the Kana field. Now, this sounds very familiar. It harkens back to 1948 when Israel offered 700,000 Arab residents of Israel citizenship in Israel, and they refused it. It harkens back to the talks with Yasser Arafat, where Israel was willing to concede over 90% of everything they asked for, but since they didn't get it all, they took none. And they began to war with Israel. This all or nothing proposal is at the heart of the Islamic claim to land which was once under Islamic rule. And their belief is if it was once under Islamic rule, it is always and forever under Islamic rule, regardless of who is the leadership at the time. Lebanon and Israel last fought a war in 2006. They have no diplomatic relationships and are separated by an unpatrolled ceasefire line. They resumed negotiations over their maritime frontier in 2020, but the process was stalled by Beirut's claim that the map used by the UN in the talks needed modifying. Now, when you go to Israel and you're standing on Mount Bental, and Mount Bental is an overlook in Israel. You can look out over Syria and you can look to your west and you can see Lebanon. And you see on the hills of the mountaintop, you can see an Israeli lookout facing a Lebanese lookout. And they are facing each other, monitoring all their events. Tensions with Hezbollah, which is an Iranian-backed terrorist organization, have been at the highest level since the war in 2006. Lebanon badly needs an agreement over the maritime border in the Mediterranean as it hopes to exploit offshore gas reserves to try to alleviate what has become the worst economic crisis in its modern history. So Lebanon is a failing nation, and the Lebanese people are suffering the same way the people in Gaza are suffering. Governments around the world are categorically ignoring the plight of their people. This is no different than what we're seeing in communist China. This is no different than what we're seeing in North Korea. This is no different than what we're seeing in South America under these dictatorships. This is no different than what we're seeing under the influence of the Islamic Jihad terrorist organization and Hamas, who have no regard for the people. They are just simply sold out to the cause of Islam and the annihilation of those that do not adhere to its ideology. Israel maintains sovereignty over the Karish gas fields and has been seeking to develop the field as it tries to position itself as a national gas supplier to Europe. In June, Israel, Egypt, and the EU signed a memorandum of understanding in Cairo that will see Israel export its natural gas to the bloc for the first time. So it's interesting to see the players. Europe, the EU, which includes Germany, which is biblically Gomer, is one of the confederates in the Ezekiel 38 confederacy. Egypt is not mentioned in that. However, Egypt is a part of the Psalm 83. So we're seeing conflicting alignments here. In one regard, we're seeing the burners turned up in the Middle East, but in another regard, we're seeing a group of players that we might not expect to see. We're seeing Turkey playing a dominant role in many of the negotiations, both with people that are supposed to be confederates of theirs in an attack on Israel, yet they're siding with NATO, who would join Turkey, and Turkey would join under Article 5. If Russia were to attack a NATO country, Turkey would support that and would join forces to attack Russia or to counter the attack from Russia. Yet we read that there's an alliance that will be formed at a future date in Ezekiel 38 and 39. So it kind of makes it difficult to where we put that pin in the timeline of prophecy. Now, it can be confusing because there are parallel timelines, and because the leadership of these countries cannot be trusted. And so when it makes the news, it's what they want us to see. And so I can report to you what's being reported, but I can't report to you what's going on behind closed doors. And as we know, there are other agendas at work that we are completely unaware of that will lead, because we have full confidence in the scriptures, that will lead to a conflict, either the war before the war, the Psalm 83 war, or ultimately the Ezekiel 38-39 conflict and the rise of the Antichrist. We've hit about 5 minutes before the hour. So let's take a short break right now before we start the second hour and before I get into the next story. We'll be right back after these short announcements.
We pray today's show blessed you as much as it did us, and hope you will join us weekdays from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Replays of the show are available online at www.live365.com. Please email your questions and comments to Rabbi Eric at ignitinganation.com or on our social media platforms. Stay tuned for the second hour of Revealing the Truth with Rabbi Eric Walker. The phone lines are open at 850-660-9595.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The following is made possible by Dad.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
Why do you have to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs? Because you might step in a poodle.
And kids that spend more time with their dads grow up to be smarter, more successful.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
And with any luck, funnier adults.
Why didn't the skeleton go to the dance? Because he didn't have any body to go with.
Dad jokes rule. So take a moment to make a moment and give your kid a laugh. It's as easy as going to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
That's really funny.
The program you are listening to is brought to you by Igniting a Nation, a 501c3 nonprofit ministry. We are 100% supported by your contributions. You can partner with us and support this program, our outreach in Kisii, Kenya, and our support of Israel. Visit us at www.ianbn.com and take advantage of access to thousands of hours of teaching. You can also donate there on our social media platforms. Your support is a blessing here, there, and everywhere. Welcome back to Revealing the Truth with Rabbi Eric Walker. Here's your host, Rabbi Eric Walker, ready to take your calls at 850-660-9595.
Shalom and welcome back to this second hour of Revealing the Truth, the Prophecy Edition, as we cover the headlines, the heart lines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker. The phone lines are open at 850-660-9595. We know you have a lot of choices in the media you follow. We thank you and are grateful for the support that we received from our faithful followers on the 7 different outlets that we have. We're on all the social media channels. We're on iHeartRadio. We are on live365.com, which is a great outlet for music and for programs like ours, as well as the Igniting a Nation website. I want to encourage you that I just sent out an email blast. If you didn't get it, then drop me a note. I did publish the content of that on the Facebook page. So if you want to read that update, I want to encourage you to do that. And it kind of gives you the future look as to what we are trying to accomplish. Also let you know of the availability of my new book, 315, The Genesis of All Prophecy. You can get that on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle, as well as at the Skywatch TV store, where you might find a special bundle price that they offer periodically. And you can also catch the interviews that were done on Skywatch TV on both the Skywatch main program and Mysteries of the Bible with Derek and Sharon Gilbert. So we did 4 programs while we were there, and all those are available online. So if you want to know a little background on the book before you get the book, then that's the way to do it, is to watch that. The trailer for the book is up on my new Rumble channel, which is Rabbi Eric Walker. It's the only thing that's up there right now. We're trying to figure out how to get this feed to the Rumble channel, and we're hoping that we can convince Restream to add it as one of the streaming outlets, because it's all automated. This goes to one place and then they send it out to other places. So the signal we have going out of here is great and strong. If you're on, for example, on YouTube and you're having a volume problem, then switch over to LinkedIn or switch over to Facebook or switch over to Twitter, or switch over to the Igniting Nation web.com website, where you can listen to the same program and watch the same program, but maybe the connection with YouTube can be sketchy at times, and we encourage you to take advantage of all the media outlets we have. And of course, we encourage you to continue to support the ministry as we expand. We expand our reach through this radio ministry, which runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and are reaching people from all over the world. I get messages that people in Poland are listening, people in Portugal are listening, Pakistan, Afghanistan, in Kisii, Kenya, at our congregation there, where we have the Igniting a Nation Worship Center headed up by Pastor Job Ezekiel. If you are interested in supporting the works that we do, then go to the ignitingnation.com donate page on the website, and you can designate your contribution to be used for one of our outreaches, whether or not it's our outreach to Israel, it's our outreach to Kisii, Kenya, or it's in support of our work being done here in getting books published, in getting the message out, in connecting with churches, and in the funding for this radio station. As you know, there are costs involved in broadcasting, and we are trying to give you the best quality program not available elsewhere. And so we make that available to you. Now, one of the things that you will notice is that some of the programs, because they are an hour long and the program lineup changes every hour, there's a new message being delivered, that with the advertising that goes on that's required in order for us to be on the air, that's what pays some of the bills. You'll find that some of the messages you don't get to the end. Well, we have an answer for that, and that answer is go to the Igniting Nation website and go to the Biblical Truth Library and download the entire message and series for yourself. You can also have the alternative of looking in the archives of the YouTube channel, where there are over, right now, I think I counted over 3,700 videos that we have produced in the last 20 years. We have always been a ministry that puts out a lot of biblical information and information that you're not going to get at your local church. So the message we bring is a biblical message. It's a message of truth, but it's a perspective that is not denominationally shared. It doesn't mean that we are in agreement or disagreement, that we are opposed or we are advocating for. It's just that we have a particular point of view. It is unique in the Christian world, and although it is growing in traction, it is still the minority position and the minority teaching that's out there. So if you want to avail yourself of a Jewish look at the scriptures, taking it all the way through the book of Revelation, understanding that there was no New Testament at the time of Jesus, and that everything that was being discussed was in a Jewish context, not in a Greek context, that it makes much more sense when it's explained to you and the dots are connected. And that's what our program is all about. That's what our mission is that we are a virtual apostolic ministry like Paul. Not that we put ourselves and hold ourselves in that esteem that we are a Paul, but we do have a Pauline call. And that is to reach out into the communities that are dealing with some of these issues and struggling with understanding them and providing biblical insight into them. And so today's program is dedicated to revealing prophecy. If you go to the website, you'll see that we do have a channel lineup for you. And the lineup is simply directed toward these 2 live hours each day. So on Mondays, the program is Revealing the Bible, and that will be a deep Bible teaching. Yesterday, it was on breakthrough, and we talked about breakthrough all the way from the beginning with Joseph, going all the way through Jesus in the book of Revelation, talking about being overcomers. Our Tuesday program is Revealing Life. Today I mixed it up, and today became Revealing Prophecy. So sometimes I don't even follow my own guide and get a little ahead of myself because I get excited when I find some articles that will stimulate. But we will continue in this discussion. Revealing Life is really talking about what it is that we as believers are contending with and facing in our family lives. Then Wednesday is supposed to be Revealing Prophecy. Thursday is our Revelation study. And Friday comes under the banner Revealing the Truth. And that is where we take particular parts of Scripture that have taken a lesser role in the church, in denominational Christianity and in the believer's life, and put more emphasis in it by showing you the connection and the way it weaves itself through Scripture. So I apologize to you for not checking my own program guide and making today Revealing Prophecy. And so we'll switch, or we may even continue and have another episode of Revealing Prophecy tomorrow. You never know. It all has to do with how the day plays out and what happens in the news cycle. So our next story, Cyprus decides to buy Israel's Iron Dome rocket defense system. Israel and Cyprus have deepened their defense cooperation in recent months, including soldier equipment purchases and joint drills. This is a story by the Jerusalem Post. So Israel's Iron Dome rocket defense system is set to be purchased for the Cypriot National Guard after its defense ministry's approval. The Cyprus edition of Kathimerini Daily has reported. According to the report on Friday, the agreement has been signed by both Israeli and Cypriot officials. The Israeli Defense Ministry did not respond to an inquiry about the reported deal. The National Guard is reportedly eager to add the Iron Dome system to its arsenal, as its range would fully cover the area needed by Cyprus. In particular, Kathimerini notes, the system is considered ideal for both air defense and countering the threat of Turkish drones. The report described Iron Dome as the best system of its type available, as seen in its effectiveness recently against rockets fired from the Gaza Strip. Head of the Cyprus National Guard, Lieutenant General Demokritos Zervakis, toured Israel as a guest of IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Aviv Kohavi in early March. During the visit, Zervakis toured the Lebanese border and visited an Iron Dome battery. Past Cyprus-Israel defense purchases in June, Cyprus signed an agreement with Israel for personal protective equipment systems for Cyprus's military. The equipment includes personal protective and tactical carrying systems developed by Source and tactical carrying systems that were developed by Maram Dolphin. The defense cooperation between Cyprus and Israel continues to grow and extend, Defense Minister Charlambos Petridis said at the time. We are proud that this cooperation is in tandem with our excellent bilateral relations and reflects how neighboring countries should work for promoting peace and stability. The Republic of Cyprus and the State of Israel maintain identical views and positions on the security of the Eastern Mediterranean based on international law. Petridis continued, the relations between our two countries extend beyond common interest, and we shall work to further strengthen, expand, and deepen our defense cooperation. We are delighted to have established a long-term strategic partnership with the State of Israel in defense. It is mutually beneficial cooperation that fosters regional stability, security, and prosperity. In May, the IDF conducted a joint drill with Cypriot National Guard forces, simulating war against Hezbollah inside enemy territory as part of the month-long Chariots of Fire exercise. Gantz thanks Cyprus for hosting the IDF and joining the drills, stating that it illustrates the strength of the strategic alliance between Israel and Cyprus. So if you have not looked at where Cyprus is located, I'd like you to pull up a map and look at the geography of where Cyprus is located in the Mediterranean, off the coast of Lebanon, off the coast of Syria, and in proximity to Turkey and Israel. It is a strategic partner. If we were to look at it in American terms, Cyprus is becoming almost Israel's Philippines. And it is becoming very Israeli aligned, which gives Israel a centralized Mediterranean location to participate in defense of intercepting any fire from Turkey, any fire coming from the west into Israel, and provide an additional level of security. Cyprus is also in discussions, if they have not already signed them, for the acquisition of a pipeline for natural gas coming out of Haifa Bay and extending across the Mediterranean. This is a project that is tantamount to when AT&T laid the first intercontinental or oceanic cable when they connected from Los Angeles to Hawaii and laid that cable underground. Well, this kind of offshore enterprise in the transporting of natural gas from the large gas deposits off of the coast of Haifa would add certainty to the region. This is a forward-thinking view and one that we hope that other countries in the region would subscribe to. Now, is Cyprus a major military player? The answer is no. But are they a strategic partner in giving Israel a second geographic location for batteries of the Iron Dome to intercept rockets and missiles coming in to their country? And the answer is yes. I think Americans can learn a lot from that. I am in great hopes that America, whose defense infrastructure does not have the ability to intercept incoming rocket fire. Now, this is public knowledge that our defense systems are old. And because of their age, and because of the advancement of Iran's influence in South America in equipping regimes with military devices that are capable of reaching America and working with Central American countries to give them military capability, America is exposed. And this is of deep concern. The current administration seems to want to invest in equipping and arming IRS agents as opposed to shoring up our defense systems. I know there are discussions about America obtaining the Iron Dome system, but where those discussions have gone, I have not recently read. This report brought in a report by Damon Duck entitled Like Never Before. He says, as I understand it, Jesus taught that there will be a generation that sees all the signs beginning to come to pass. That's from Luke 21:28. He was saying the generation that sees everything shaping up is to know that their redemption, deliverance, the completion of God's plan is drawing near. Many prophecy teachers agree that the terminal generation signs are appearing like never before. The following report appears to back that up. As you read these reports, realize never before have I heard of the IRS advertising for armed agents that are willing to kill U.S. citizens. Never before has America had the depth of government corruption we appear to have today. Never before has the FBI raided a former president's home. Never before have I heard of nations forcing farmers to use less fertilizer and grow less cattle during food shortages. Never before have I heard of a global leader calling people useless without criticism. Never before have I heard of school textbooks telling children to eat bugs and weeds. Never before have globalists said people will own nothing and be happy. Never before have I heard of schools telling students it's bad to call America a nation under God. Those are some stunning headlines. When you hear them all together, and you add to that the report that I heard yesterday that a school removed the Bible from the school's library because a list of books that were controversial had been made known to the principal and the Board of Education, and the books that were listed that were controversial were removed from the library of the schools until they could be properly evaluated. The reason why the Bible was listed as a book of controversy was because there was war, there was sex, there was violence, there was murder, and there was text against homosexuality. We removed God and prayer from schools a long time ago, and the consequences have been immeasurable. Now there's a move underfoot to remove the Bible from the library of our schools. Add that to this long list of headlines. The reprobate minds that are promoting the globalist agenda are taking the world toward prophetic fulfillment and a time of tribulation like never before. Last week, I wrote that on August the 7th, 2022, the U.S. Senate passed the $739 billion deceptively named Inflation Reduction Act. The Congressional Budget Office, hundreds of economists, a few Democrats, and every Republican says it will not reduce inflation. The bill contains no money for more troops to defend America. It contains no money for more police to make America's cities safer. It contains no money to make America's borders more secure. And it funds about 87,000 new IRS agents to track American citizens buying and selling. This week, Damon wants to add to that. 4 days later, on August the 11th, 2022, the IRS posted a help wanted ad on usajobs.gov. Several things are causing concern about the IRS hiring 87,000 more agents. One of the agents' duties listed in the IRS help wanted ad is to carry a firearm and be willing to use deadly force if necessary. Another duty is be willing and able to participate in arrests, execution of search warrants, and other dangerous assignments. In recent months, the IRS has bought several million rounds of ammunition for pistols, shotguns, and AR-15 rifles. Many government officials support the World Economic Forum, the WEF, that says you will own nothing and be happy. They want the government to own everything before 2030. Many government officials want to disarm American citizens. About 30 armed FBI agents recently raided former President Trump's home. The concern is that the IRS is seeking to hire thousands of agents that will be heavily armed and willing to kill U.S. citizens. At the same time, some government officials want to disarm U.S. citizens, and the U.S. is supporting a group, the WEF, that wants to confiscate everyone's property. Is the government afraid U.S. citizens might fight to keep their houses, farms, and other possessions? On August 13, 2022, it was reported that the IRS had just deleted the help wanted ad seeking people to carry a firearm and be willing to use deadly force if necessary. I could have deleted the above, but think voters need to know that the IRS wanted to hire people that would be willing to kill citizens. 2, concerning corruption, on August the 11th, 2022, it was reported that Senator Ron Johnson said, "We have a corrupt medical system in this country, from the pharmaceutical companies down to the federal health agencies, through to the research agencies and medical journals. The corruption is in several layers of our government, and that is very troubling. The presidency of the U.S., the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the National Institute of Health, the Food and Drug Administration, the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the IRS. It is easy to believe that the U.S. government will support the coming deceitful New World Order." It's stunning. It's startling. It's shocking. It's scary to think that our government is no longer in any way, shape, or form similar to what the founding fathers intended. The fact that I have to consider growing produce, vegetables in my backyard sufficient to feed myself and possibly my family is something that I had never considered before moving here. The property was conducive to it. It had already been started, and I've added to it. And this fall, I expect to have a full harvest that will last me through the winter. Now, I'm not a prepper. I'm not one of those that is putting away and storing and stockpiling, but I'm beginning to think about, as we prepare for hurricane season, should I not also be considering that if I'm looking to survive a tropical storm that's going to last for possibly 2 weeks of direct impact on the supply chain, should I not be looking to secure my home in a manner in which, however the government turns, I and my family will be okay? I'm not proposing you go out and spend tens of thousands of dollars on food and generators and stockpiles, but what I'm saying is with the prices of goods going up and the scarcity of certain items and the government's policies, which are now forcing farmers to not produce as much, or for cattle ranches to not produce as much, is not in keeping with a government that is concerned for the welfare of their people. They would rather print more money and put it in the hands of the needy, who have to then go out and pay these exorbitant retail prices. And so that just compounds the issue of an 8.2% rising inflation rate. It is easy to believe that the United States government will support the coming deceitful New World Order. On August the 12th, 2022, David Hodges said it like this on the Common Sense Show: "The enemy is not at the gate. The enemy is inside the gate." 3, concerning corruption. On August the 12th, 2022, Bill Koenig reported in Koenig's iView that some people believe President Trump has documents that suggest the involvement of high-level FBI and DOJ officials in the Russian collusion hoax and other schemes. There is some speculation that the high-level FBI and DOJ officials sent the FBI agents to Mar-a-Lago to find and seize the evidence Trump has. A few Republicans are seeking whistleblowers that can confirm this, and Bill Koenig noted that whistleblowers are coming forward. Skeptics should recall that FBI agents have been caught lying to judges and the media about the Russian collusion hoax, and DOJ officials have falsely called parents domestic terrorists for complaining about critical race theory being taught in schools. Speculation that this was a dirty trick to keep Trump from running for president, again, is also rampant. More, on August 15, 2022, it was reported that Representative Jim Jordan said 14 FBI whistleblowers had visited Republican members of the House Judiciary Committee, alleging misconduct by leaders of the FBI. This should not surprise us. From J. Edgar Hoover to this administration that allowed for so many atrocities and crimes and conspiracies to unfold in America and not act upon them. This Hunter Biden thing in the Hillary Clinton situation, it's mind-boggling that we are prosecuting non-criminals for concerning the return of the Jews to the promised land at the end of the age, Jeremiah 31, 8 and 9. On August 11th, it was reported that 31,066 Jews have already returned from Russia, 18,891 returned from Russia, and Ukraine, 12,175 this year. Almost 74% of the 16 to 80-year-old Jews that have returned from Ukraine are women, because fighting-age men are not allowed to leave the country while the war is raging. This brings to mind the fact that the war will cause a shortage of men during the tribulation period, resulting in 7 women being willing to marry 1 man so that they can have a child, as prophesied in Isaiah 4 and 1. Concerning food shortages and famine, on August the 9th, 2022, it was reported there were about 54,000 farms in the Netherlands. 11,200 farms, almost 21%, are being forced to shut down to meet climate change emission goals. 17,600 farms, almost 33%, are being forced to reduce the number of cattle they own to meet climate change nitrogen pollution standards. Farmers are losing their livelihood. Food shortages will increase, and past reports have said these policies are going to be forced on nations all over the world. They are part of the Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. More on August 13, 2022, on the Common Sense Show. Dave Hodges said this issue of cattle polluting the air is mentioned in Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. Hodges didn't say what the bill said about it, but he did say it's in the Biden bill, and he said food shortages are coming. Concerning food shortage and famine, on August 14th, it was reported the Canadian government is preparing to force Canadian farmers to reduce the amount of nitrogen fertilizer they use to grow crops. Forcing farmers to use less nitrogen fertilizer will reduce the amount of food that's produced. Reducing world hunger by 2030 is the United Nations goal, but using less nitrogen fertilizer will increase world hunger, not reduce it. Using less nitrogen fertilizer is also part of the Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. We've hit the hour, 9:30, and so it's time for us to go to our next break. But when we return, we will continue with these enlightening stories of how prophecy is unfolding in the world today.
We'll be right back with more Revealing the Truth with Rabbi Eric Walker right after this commercial break.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick and proud aunt. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. 1 in 6. That little girl sitting alone at the playground, she can't play like the other kids. She doesn't have the energy because she's hungry. School lunch will be her only meal today. It breaks my heart that this is the reality in our country, but it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. This food is then provided to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about using your imagination, learning, and having fun. These children shouldn't have to miss out on simply being a kid because they're hungry. To find out how you can help end childhood hunger in your community, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Okay, men, this is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're going to go out there and be an all-star caregiver. It's up to you. So what are you going to do? You're going to go grocery shopping, cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You got to dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments. Don't you forget about the pharmacy. No, you won't. Because that's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. This is your time to show the world, your family, and yourself that you're tougher than tough. Now go out there and be the best caregiver this world has ever seen. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
In the Garden of Eden, God spoke his first prophecy. Not much has been said or written about the eternal impact of the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. What if every prophecy, and even Jesus' return, was tied to this prophecy and no one ever told you? Now you have a chance to read for yourself Rabbi Eric's latest book, 315, The Genesis of All Prophecy. Featured on Skywatch TV, this book is a must-read. Get your copy at Amazon or from Skywatch TV. And don't forget to order The Codist, Rabbi Eric's prophetic biblical thriller, exposing a diabolical plot to weaponize your DNA. And while you're at it, get his book, The 7 Laws of Abundant Living. Welcome back to Revealing the Truth with Rabbi Eric Walker. Here's your host, Rabbi Eric Walker, ready to take your calls at 850-660-9595.
Welcome back to our final half hour of Revealing the Truth, where we talk about the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, welcoming you into today's Tuesday edition, where I messed up the schedule and put Revealing Prophecy today when it's really supposed to be tomorrow. So we'll have to see what tomorrow's program holds. And so that's the beauty of the freedom of writing your own programming and delivering these messages. One of the things you can do, and I will ask of each one of you to do, is to help us break this algorithm prison that we are in on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, where we are only going so far out. There are literally millions of people who are not receiving these posts. And in the case of Facebook, we have hundreds of thousands of followers, yet most of those followers are not seeing our posts. So I'm going to ask you if you will share our posts with others in your network. It's simple. There is a share button at the bottom of each one of these teachings, and just click it and share it. Share it to your page, and hopefully encourage others to share it to their page to get the word out about the ministry and the work that we do and the program. We are the only 24/7 Christian talk radio station between Mobile, Alabama, and New Orleans. So we cover a wide local geography, but we have a global reach as well. So there are many people who are starving for biblical truth that just don't know we exist. And as you know, the social media platforms are not conservative friendly, especially when it comes to things of the Bible. So we need to do our part in helping to share these messages with people by posting it to our pages so that others can see and share it, and encouraging them to share. And if you share, if you write reviews about the book, if you comment about the program, if you share comments about the program, if you capture excerpts of the program from YouTube, and you can use tools like clip grab and others, or extract a poignant statement or a particular reference to an article or something that I've shared with you, and share it with others, you will be doing us a great service. So while the current U.S. administration is falsely claiming the U.S. has zero inflation, the UN is warning that food prices will keep rising because the price of fertilizer will keep rising and crop yields will decline. Right now, the inflation rate is still 8.5%, not zero. Concerning a global population reduction, on August the 12th, it was reported that Yuval Noah Harari, chief advisor to the World Economic Forum head Klaus Schwab, said that the world does not need most of its current population. According to Harari, artificial intelligence is replacing people, the shift to AI is increasing, and an increasing number of people are becoming useless. This is the most anti-God statement that anyone can make, is that those of us that God created are rendered useless because of technology. This is the Antichrist message. And if your biblically trained eyes are not sensitive to the underlying message of this, it devalues the life that God created. Yes, there are people living in impoverished conditions, and their governments are doing nothing about it and living in palaces and great wealth. It's been that way for centuries, for generations. But does it have to be that way? It does not. People talk about, well, we're running out of land. We have all the land we need. There is so much land, undeveloped land, and land that would not cause, if done correctly in its development, harm to the environment if we had a replanting and a harvesting program. Harari and the WEF value the environment and sustainability more than they value the lives of people. Concerning America's abandonment of God, on August the 12th, 2022, it was reported that the Fargo, North Dakota School Board has decided it's illegal to recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States because it mentions God and does not align with the district's diversity, equity, and inclusion values. According to the school board's vice president, the pledge had to go because it might upset the Hindus, Muslims, and atheists. Concerning pestilence and deceit, on August the 15th, Joe Biden, wife of President Joe Biden, tested positive for COVID, even though she'd been double vaccinated and had 2 booster shots, jabbed for COVID 4 times. By now, everyone should know that vaccination and booster shots do not keep people from getting COVID. Now, I'm not offering a medical opinion here. I'm just reporting to you what we have found to be true. And I know many vaccinated people that have contracted COVID. That is not a commentary on the vaccines or on the companies, and I'm not offering any medical advice for or against. I'm just reporting the news. Vaccinated and boosted people may have a milder case of COVID, or they may have a dangerous or life-ending side effect from the vaccinations, but they can still get COVID. People should be concerned that Big Pharma was donated millions of dollars to politicians and making billions of dollars off of mandatory vaccinations. Sadly, we should follow the money because there's some talk of forcing people to be vaccinated for monkeypox and other pandemic scare tactics. The safety of the public should take precedent over political donation and big pharma profits. Concerning food shortages on August the 8th, it was reported that government-funded propagandists in some Western nations are now using children's books to teach children to eat insects and weeds to save the planet from natural disaster and climate change. The report said this could be dangerous to children. Concerning world government and a possible rise of 10 kings, on August the 16th, 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin said, and Damon adds his words for explanation, the U.S. and its allies dominate the world in a unipolar fashion. His comment is, America and its allies act as one power and have too much influence in the world. This unipolar dominance is doomed and will be replaced by a multipolar world. Comments added, the current international order cannot stand and will be replaced by new international order with more nations sharing power and influence. The era of the unipolar world order is a thing of the past. A new world order and redistribution of power has arrived. According to the Bible, 10 kings, whether they're leaders, czars, etc., are a prelude to the Antichrist, and they will surrender their power and authority to the Antichrist. I do not know that Putin's view of a multipolar world is 10 leaders of groups of nations, but I believe we could be seeing the beginning of that. Next story, there will be pestilences. Authorities don't understand why so many vile diseases are suddenly erupting around the world. This is contributed by Michael Snyder. Why are we seeing so many unusual outbreaks of disease in 2022? Coming into this year, there was just one major outbreak that everyone was talking about. But then 2022 came along, and all of a sudden it seemed like there was a new disease in the news every month. First, an eruption of the bird flu spread like wildfire, and that resulted in the death of tens of millions of our chickens and turkeys. Then monkeypox took the world by storm. It has spread to nearly 100 different countries, and it's now the worst monkeypox outbreaks in history by a very wide margin. And now more weird diseases are popping up. Earlier this month, he wrote an article about the appearance of Langa hennavirus in China and the case of polio that was just detected in New York. In this article, I'll be telling you about even more strange outbreaks that are deeply alarming global authorities. For example, a very mysterious virus that is being called the tomato flu has started to spread in India. Doctors in India have sounded the alarm over a new virus dubbed tomato flu that has infected dozens of children. The infection was spotted in May in the southern states of Kerala, and it's feared to be a new variant of hand, foot, and mouth disease. There are a couple of things about this that caught my attention right away. First of all, I think it's very noteworthy that this happened in India. There are more than 1 billion people in that nation, and many of them live in extremely overcrowded urban areas. Secondly, this is yet another disease that causes sores on the skin. In fact, the sores can actually grow until they are the size of a tomato. The infection gained its name because it causes an eruption of red, painful blisters across patients' bodies that gradually enlarge to the size of a tomato. Most patients also suffer high fever and intense joint pain, but fatigue, sickness, and diarrhea have also been reported. Can you imagine having sores that grow to be the size of tomatoes all over your body? I get grossed out just thinking about that. We are being told that this disease appears to be very contagious, and at this point, there's no known cure. There is currently no test or treatment for the virus. Medics say all patients should be isolated for 5 to 7 days from symptom onset and told to rest, drink plenty of fluids, and take paracetamol. Right now, authorities have no idea where this disease came from or why it has suddenly erupted, and that should deeply concern all of us. Meanwhile, 3 people have already died in Tanzania from an outbreak of a disease known as leptospirosis. A deadly outbreak of an unknown disease in Tanzania has been identified as leptospirosis. More than 20 cases, including 3 deaths, have been reported in southern Lindi region, with patients exhibiting symptoms similar to Ebola or Marburg virus diseases, fever, headache, fatigue, and bleeding, especially from the nose, according to health officials. Preliminary results from laboratory testing earlier this month have ruled out Ebola and Marburg viruses, as well as COVID-19, making the illness a mystery until now. Since this particular outbreak is limited to a particular geographic area, hopefully it can be contained. Because this is a disease that doesn't sound fun at all, the following information about leptospirosis comes from the CDC. It is a bacterial disease that affects humans and animals. It's caused by a bacteria of the genus Leptospira. In humans, it can cause a wide variety of symptoms, some of which may be mistaken for other diseases. Some infected persons, however, may have no symptoms at all. Without treatment, leptospirosis can lead to kidney damage, meningitis, liver failure, respiratory disease, and even death. Elsewhere in Africa, it appears that there is yet another outbreak of Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Democratic Republic of Congo is investigating a suspected case of Ebola in its violent rack east, the World Health Organization said Saturday, just weeks after the end of a previous epidemic. Excuse me. The DRC earlier last month declared its latest Ebola outbreak over, more than 2 months after the virus reemerged in the northwest Equator province. There were 4 confirmed cases and 1 probable case, all of whom died, in what the World Health Organization said was the country's 14th outbreak since the disease was discovered in 1976. The good news is that Ebola has never spread very easily among humans, so we have never seen a true global outbreak of the disease. But we didn't think that there would ever be a true global outbreak of monkeypox, and now thousands upon thousands of people are deeply suffering all over the world. Authorities can't seem to explain why monkeypox has changed so dramatically. And they also can't seem to explain why so many strange diseases have been suddenly breaking out all over the globe this year. Even here in the United States, really weird things are happening. For instance, that we just learned that an 8-year-old boy in Nebraska was just killed by a brain-eating amoeba. An 8-year-old boy has died in Nebraska after reportedly becoming infected with a brain-eating amoeba. If confirmed, this would be the first case in the state ever recorded. It suggests that the Naegleria fowleria is expanding further north in the United States. The boy, Easton Gray, was likely exposed to the amoeba when he went swimming in the Elkhorn River near Valley, a community located west of Omaha, on August the 8th, according to the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services. We were warned that this era in history would be a time of great pestilences, and it's happening right in front of our eyes. And unfortunately, what we have experienced so far is just the beginning. Every single day, mad scientists are monkeying around with the most virulent diseases ever known to humanity in secret labs all over the planet. In the book, The Codist, that I wrote was about the weaponization of DNA. And it identified labs which did not participate in a DNA weaponized non-proliferation agreement. 40 nations signed on to this agreement when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. Many nations, bad actors, did not sign on to it, meaning that their laboratories were going to be actively pursuing the weaponization of DNA. Now, when we look at these obscure diseases, we can go back to the time when AIDS, sickle cell anemia, SARS, HIV, Tay-Sachs, Epstein-Barr, a number of diseases appeared on the planet. And when the question about COVID-19 being developed in a laboratory or testing being done on these viruses was proposed, there was a violent, virulent opposition to that. And China took exception to it, and Fauci took exception to it. But the truth remains that these laboratories exist, and they exist for the weaponization. And it is a type of population control. Sickle cell anemia is only contracted by people who are African American. In Africa, there are laboratories developing many virulent diseases, and they're using human DNA. And hundreds of millions of you have sent your DNA willingly to laboratories that tell you that it's only going to be used for ancestry work, and it might be sanitized your personal information, but the DNA itself would be sold. And we found that 23andMe, Ancestry.com, sold some 40 million samples of DNA to a laboratory in England. And those DNA samples were then resold to these laboratories. Knowing how the enemy works and the advancing darkness that's on the earth, it's not surprising. And knowing how careless people are, it's not surprising that these viruses are leaking out into the public. And so, on one hand, it's a mystery, and on the other hand, it's a prophetic fulfillment. In the last days, we will see wars and rumors of wars, famine and pestilences in diverse places. In many cases, they are purposely trying to make these diseases even more deadly. It's often said that accidents happen, and I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more accidents in the days ahead. All these stories are given to you to let you know that prophecy is unfolding before our very eyes. And we have to search the headlines to see what's important, what's not important, what's potentially important. But when we see government actively engaged in dialogue with adversarial regimes who are developing weaponized viruses, and we are trying to form strategic alliances with them and make peace with them, and even give them a certain dominance in the world. When I tell you that when the Iron Curtain fell, 200 of the most prominent geneticists in the former Soviet Union were paid over $1 million each, all expenses paid, homes provided, and the best laboratory equipment in the world made available to them. 200 of them relocated to Tehran. That should strike fear in your heart that what's going behind laboratory doors and our government, our CDC, our Department of Health are so blinded by the influx of money and diversion that we are not being protected. And when the report came out about monkeypox and an incident in New York, nobody thought anything about it. But here we are months later, and they are promoting the vaccination against monkeypox. In the same way they attributed AIDS originally to having sex with a primate, they are now attributing monkeypox to man's having sexual relations with a primate. The story is recycling with a new disease. And it would not surprise me that the debauchery and the fallen nature of man has become so perverse that none of us are immune from it. And therefore we must pray and pray and pray until Messiah comes and all this is put to an end. We've reached our time for me to share the blessing from Numbers chapter 6 and verse 22, where the Lord says to Moses, "Tell Aaron and his sons, this is how you are to bless the children of Israel." He goes on to say, "In this way, I will put my name on them and I will bless them." Please bow your heads to receive the Aaronic benediction. Yivarech Adonai v'yismerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav v'kunecha, Yasar Adonai panav v'yasim shalom. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance toward you and give you his peace. In the name of the Prince of Peace, Jesus our Messiah. Amen and amen. Stay tuned for these final announcements, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow for the next edition of Revealing the Truth. Don't forget, 24/7 programming all day long, all night long on iHeart, on the Igniting Nation apps, on live365.com, and on our website. Stay tuned all day, all night for more of Revealing the Truth. God bless.
The program you are listening to is brought to you by Igniting a Nation, a 501c3 nonprofit ministry. We are 100% supported by your contributions. You can partner with us and support this program, our outreach in Kisii, Kenya, and our support of Israel. Visit us at www.ianbn.com and take advantage of access to thousands of hours of teaching. You can also donate there on our social media platforms. Your support is a blessing here, there, and everywhere.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, "That's rad." It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, "Totally," just shorter. As in, "I totes love going to the mall with Becca." Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, "Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case."
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad, just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Thank you for listening to Revealing the Truth with Rabbi Eric Walker. Join us tomorrow at 8 a.m. Central Time and give us a call at 850-660-9595. Full downloadable versions of all the teachings are available at ignitinganation.com. Don't forget to listen 24/7 for Revealing Life, Revealing the Bible, Revealing Prophecy, Revealing the Gospels, and more of Revealing the Truth. Download Igniting a Nation or listen on iHeartRadio. Until we see you right back here tomorrow, Shalom.